Welcome to Around the Bases, the pop culture and sports podcast with your host.
Charlie Seymour.
And I'm Tim Sternberg. Hit it, Nick. Hit it, Nick. We are back. A little longer than a week, but we are here. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How was your trip?
Man, I got to hang out with our brother Andy and had the best time at Disney World and at Epcot, MGM. That big shout out. Thank you, Andy, for
Only about a
just an
week or two
awesome time.
between. We both got to see him, so that was pretty
Yes,
cool.
which is crazy, right? Yeah, Charlie saw him in California. I saw him in Florida, and yeah, we both shared in the Andy. You know, Andy, I will say this real quick, and I know you're going to agree with me. He is one of the nicest human beings on the planet. Like he is
Yeah.
just genuinely a good dude, and
And he's not afraid to give true, meaningful shout outs to people in public places.
100%. He is so freaking talented. He shared.
You didn't get what I did there, but that's okay.
No, no, no. I want to get it. What did you say? Because I had a thought and I was continuing it and I didn't really pay attention. What did you just say?
I said, and he loves to give true, meaningful shout outs to people in public places.
Pump. True crew.
Remember
And
when, and
yes.
when you were in Orlando, he made the
Oh, really?
announcement.
You had to go there, bro?
Yeah, that's
You
what I was
had-
saying. That's what I was hinting at.
Did you see my face in that video? That
I
said
did.
it
That I did.
all. Like, you know, the disappointed dad look, basically. That was
If looks could kill.
well, here I am eating my steak, and you know, I didn't know he even had a camera on me. And the next thing I know, we're in the NBC grill, and he freaking, I'm not gonna say what he said, but he shouts out this certain
We'll
thing
just say it's
about
NSFW.
enjoyment.
It's
And he
not safe
says,
for work.
no, it's
It's
not
not
safe
safe
for,
for work.
and it's not safe for this podcast that we try to keep as family friendly as possible. But he shouts this thing out, and I'm like, you notice though, the look though, right? It's not of surprise because we know what he does,
Been
right?
there, done that.
He's so funny. He said,
He's
"There's,
the best.
he's the best." I couldn't even count how many times he like literally were in line for a ride and he'll just scream something random out, and people look at him. I'm like, Andy, it's so good. It just made me laugh. He really is, and he's freaking. If you don't know this, folks, he's a talented as hell mentalist. I mean, he's really good at what he does. And he shared with me a story real quick. He's when he was out in Palm Springs, he performed magic for your family, and literally one of your family members was with him at like some kind of uh affair or something, and he bought his wife a picture,
Yeah,
and
that
it
was
meant
that was
so
my
much.
sister-in-law's boyfriend.
It meant so much to him that he's like still like beaming about it, and his wife
That's awesome. I will
Chanel
definitely
loved
pass that
that.
along.
Yeah, he shared with me that story, and it's just like, yeah, that makes sense because this is Charlie's family, so it totally
That was
vibes.
probably about 20 minutes after he performed at our table, which we were on the outside patio. So many of the servers and bus boys and all of them were like gathered around. There was like a crowd. And then we got his card to the manager. So hopefully they'll bring him back and he'll get to do something there one time. It'd be cool.
Yeah, definitely check Andy Garces. If you don't know the Magic Thug, he is awesome. And if you're out there booking talent, book this dude because he's gonna be huge. And to me, he's
And
already huge. But
and I have the perfect transition because Andy would definitely be a faithful.
oh, 100. He could not. He 100% could not be a traitor. It's just not within. First of all, I mean, Andy is the type of guy that will pray before every meal. He is not. This is not something that is in his wheelhouse to turn on his friends. I would never ever suspect he is a loyal dude. Yeah, you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. And let's talk about traitors. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss. Um, Quite an interesting episode, I will say, this week. Usually I don't know. I know about you too. I'm talking from my age, right? Usually I need some refresher. I remember this episode 100%. Do not need a refresher. So I will say the lesson for this episode, Charlie, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Thou shalt not talk about Rob in front of Rob, because Rob shall seek vengeance for Rob.
Season hears everything.
Dude, Bob the drag queen. Oh my God. There's a little thing where Bob the drag queen starts talking about the newbies. So the newbies, to refresh our listeners' memories, are Boss and Rob, Derek, and Wes Bergman. Those are the newbies that were up in the cages. Bob the drag queen starts to say, huh, maybe one of them is a mole. I mean, mole. See, I'm thinking mole is a traitor. And sure enough, Rob hears this, and you know what? Mm-mm. And he does.
Why did Bob say that?
That's what I'm wondering.
Why?
That's so stupid. Like, what was he thinking? Was he thinking? Like, what is going on?
I think you're right. I think probably did not realize what he was saying.
Absolutely not. I agree 100%.
Just kind
I'm
of
like,
just kind of word vomit just kind of kept coming out.
and I'm like, dude, do
Playing a pretty
not
damn good
do
game.
that.
I think they were gonna be able to throw suspicion away. It was gonna go on one of the coffin people. I think Nikki or Sierra would have probably bitten it, but
And once, you know what? It's interesting. I don't know if you remember, you're younger than me. You don't remember this commercial, but when E.F. Hutton
I like how
talks
you were
people
about to say young and then you said
younger,
younger
because
than
you're
me.
not.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Boom, boom.
Just wanted to put
You're a
put it
grown
out there.
man, but you're younger than me. I will say that. Okay.
Back in
So, because
my day, we used
back,
to play
because I used to hate
ball
when
in the
old people
yard.
older than me used to say, "Oh, you're a youngster." Nah, I view you as a contemporary. It's just you're younger contemporary than me. I'm not old enough to be your dad, so that's all that is to it. So that's where we go. So what I was gonna say was though there was an old commercial go when Hutton talks, people listen, and I think it was like a insurance company or something. And I feel like on this show when Boston Rob talks, people whoop, because you notice how fast that round table changed to vote towards Bob the drag queen. Like
Rob
boom.
definitely did a good leg work beforehand, walking around, spreading it, but and by not by saying, "Would you do this?" but by saying, "It sounds like they have the votes with or without us." It really sold some of the people. I think a few of those people didn't if let's say both Danielle and Carolyn don't, then all it would have taken was one or two more other people to not kind of follow the sheep, so to speak.
He kind of had Carolyn and Danielle by the literal, not the literal, but the kahungas. I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
what else to
by the
say.
collar.
They could not do anything else other than follow him because if they did, they would be basically out to dry and giving Rob even more power. But it's interesting. This is not the first season we've seen traders turn on each other. And it won't be the last time we see traders turn on each other. It's early in the game for that to happen, but I think when you have four traders, there's a little room for that to happen. And, mind you, the faithful do not know how many traders there are. And typically in the past, they've started with three. So probably many of them are thinking, okay, there's probably two left. And they might recruit somebody else, which I don't think they're going to do yet. I think they're going to keep it at three for now
Yeah,
until it gets to two. I don't think they're going to recruit anybody.
agree there.
So I think really, I think Boston Rob really had no choice. I think that was a smart move for him. However, the Danielle and Carolyn are like, what the F? Like what is going on? So where that goes for him, I have no idea.
Yeah,
Like,
both of them know. Well, if he can do that to Bob, how could we be next? I think the pivotal moment will be when we get to see the conversation in the turret. Because I also think Rob is smart enough to know that same thing we're talking about. So I think Rob right away is going to say, "Listen, I had zero interest in taking out Bob at all, but Bob brought up that one of the new guys, the end of the challenge, and immediately put a target on my back. At that point, it's me or him. That's how I would pitch it if I'm Rob. So we'll see how he does.
same. Same. I agree with you 100%. Rob hasn't gotten to where he is in reality television without thinking two steps ahead. And if he can handle Amy on Deal or No Deal Island last year, he can certainly handle anybody. And I think his wheels are already going about how he's going to play it. And I honestly, I must say this, Charlie, I don't think there's a more perfect reality show for Rob than this one right here.
Yeah.
I think it's right in his wheelhouse.
There are a
Um,
few people that were still skeptical that he could be because they went back and forth at each other. So if Rob can avoid it for the next week or two, maybe really sell it, like try to go all out for a shield. Like, who knows that he's gonna have to really sell it, but he could be a big target for a while.
It looks like in the previews that, they kind of do, I mean, they edit it however they edit it, but it looks like there's a little bit of a light shining on him, as you
Yeah,
said. So it'll
yeah,
be interesting how it kind of unfolds. I love the idea of, I loved last year, the funeral, the march that they did in last season. I like the idea of the caskets and the nail, but we have to talk about your guy, Jeremy, being
I know.
murdered. Oh my
The
God.
worst
I
the
knew.
worst part was I knew he was gone before they revealed it because I don't know how close you were watching, but they showed them all go into their caskets, right?
Hmm.
And then the like for 1 second before it cut away, before the cliffhanger, you could see them approaching the middle casket. So if you realize Jeremy got in the middle right away, went to commercial, I'm like it's Jeremy.
I
Unbelievable.
had a feeling.
They showed them go to the middle casket. I was wondering why they did that, but so I mean, not everyone will pay that close attention to detail, but the second they took a step, I'm like, oh no, it's Jeremy. Yeah.
Boy, Survivor murders, huh?
Two down and two, but the only two left are actual traders. So maybe they'll be like, hey, it'd be too obvious to get a third Survivor player out. They already took two of them.
But
But
let me say this. I know you're a huge fan of Jeremy, and I totally understand. I didn't see a season, but I will definitely watch it. But what I will say is this: Jeremy is also guilty of the name dropping. On this show, you have to be very careful about trust
yeah,
and who you're trusting. And if you suspect that the people that you're talking to are in the circle with the
yeah.
traitors, keep your mouth shut.
And he was right about one of them too. And I think that's why we'll see the turn
Danielle.
on. Yeah, Danielle, I bet she pushed it.
Yeah, and honestly, for Danielle, that was probably the move to make. That was definitely the move to make. But there is a lot of suspicion still on Danielle, from what I can see. Not so much on Carolyn, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I
Every
think she's
person who's been
so crazy.
eliminated so far has been shocked that Carolyn has been one. So that kind of could bode well for her.
That's a little crazy,
Yeah,
literally and figuratively.
just like
But
her.
yeah, it's just like her. Again, I saw bits. So her season was the one right before when I started watching, and I saw bits and pieces of her season because I started getting interesting because I think we had started this podcast by then, and so I kind of knew coming into this season of the Traders that she was a little wacko. But yeah, to see it is quite interesting. Um, I would be interested to see if she makes it to Survivor 50.
I
Um,
don't think so.
I don't either from what Jeff is kind of saying with who he's gonna see on that show.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah, so we'll see. So speaking of,
Wait, really quickly.
oh wait,
Also,
yeah.
at the actual round table, while they're voting out Bob, this is brought up because we were just talking about Carolyn. Did you notice how she gave her answer when it was her turn to vote?
What do you mean?
So she had to vote and she had to pretty much make a stand. Does she want to be, if Bob is going to be out, does she want to be a person who didn't vote Bob, or does she want to be a person who voted Bob? So she voted Bob, but then in her rationale, she said, well, I didn't really know. They brought up some good points, but like Rob said, if it's not Bob, he can be next. She just also, I don't know if you picked that up. She literally said, like Rob said, he could be next if we're wrong. I don't know if anybody else noticed her say it like that, but I sure did.
I didn't pick up on that. So she
Go. rewatch the roundtable
Oh
after
my
this,
God.
and
So she
watch
literally just exposed her and Rob as traitors if people were really listening.
exactly.
Damn. How
She
did
she
I not?
basically she basically said, because Rob was like, if I'm wrong, I'll be next, whatever. She basically heard Rob say that and decided, oh, this is a perfect time for me to just jump on the knife there, and
How
then
did I
bam,
not hear that?
yeah,
Oh
go
my
rewatch
God.
it after.
That's crazy. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna rewatch. That just blew my mind because I totally did. You know me, I'm a little passive sometimes of watching even the traders, and I totally didn't pick up on that.
Yeah,
Interesting, interesting.
so
Speaking of Boston, Rob, let's talk about a show he was on last season. Deal or No Deal Island.
oh,
Let's
perfect, and we can
let's
bring in some more old Survivor people.
yes, let's do that. Um, So where were we? We didn't talk about last week's episode,
Yeah, we have
right?
last week's, and then one
And
aired tonight.
tonight's, yes. Do you want to recap last week's? Because frankly, I don't remember a lot of it for good
Last
reason.
week's was the one where the person that Poverty did not want out, they took out. She
Oh
was she
yes,
was like a very chaotic player, and
like
Poverty really did
Carolyn.
not. Yes, Poverty wanted her as a distraction, and they didn't care. We had Dr. Will introduced into the game.
Dr. Will, for those of you who don't know, one, Big Brother 2. So the very first Big Brother that changed formats to the current kind of format where there's a power, what not power veto yet, but where there is had a household and Big Brother 1 did not have that type of format. It was more of America voting off. So it's a totally different show. If you have a chance, you can kind of see that on Paramount Plus. But Big Brother 2 was the first season where there is this current structure. And so, give you some backstory of Big Brother 2. Big Brother 2 had Will, it had Nicole. It was the season before Danielle. Danielle was on Big Brother 3 from the Traders. Um, and it basically, Will dominated the whole season to the point where, similar to what he's doing on Deal or No Deal Island, he's disruptive and whatnot, but people kind of still voted for him. And just to give you a still timeline, that season aired in 2001. So that was season they had producers telling them about September 11th, and it was a crazy season. But he won that season. So fast forward a little bit, Will, for about 10 seasons or so, was the moderator of the roundtable, the jury roundtable on Big Brother. So you would see him every season until this last season, because he filmed this. So he's that iconic for Big Brother, and I will give him his props. He is. If you're going to talk about Big Brother stars, he's definitely one at the top. I don't know, I kind of Taylor's up there for me, but we'll kind of talk about iconic, I guess, at another point when we're talking about Big Brother or later in this year. So Will comes on, in this big dramatic fashion because our buddy Philip, shout out Philip, we are family, and Parvati find this banker's case, and they say something's going to happen. They're going to bring him in anyway, but okay.
Of course, the whole episode they're pretty much paired up together. So cool to see that.
And fast forward to this latest episode too, they're paired up, but that's another thing. Yeah, it's weird though. It's like 6 degrees, right, Charlie? I mean,
I know, it's
I
wild.
remember the first day in Atlanta having a really cool conversation with Philip. So, it's kind of nice to kind of know this guy. Philip, of course, was on We Are Family with Charlie and I, and he's on Deal or No Deal Island, and he's awesome.
He's
So
doing well so far.
he is. I mean, he's playing a good game and smartly attaching himself to Parvati. Poverty. I'm sorry, Parvati. But so last week's episode, they get the banker's case, and they get this power. What was the power they had last week?
Last week's power was oh man, I don't remember what oh,
It was
it was they had
immunity.
to go to they found they all had a piece of the map, and it was like by the shack.
Yeah.
And then I don't even remember what the power was. It wasn't as good as the one tonight.
I will say that. Can I just take that comment real quick? That basically sums up how I'm feeling about this
Yeah,
season. A lot of it is forgettable. But not to our
it
buddy's
was also
chagrin.
9 days ago, in
It,
fairness.
it, in fairness, it was, and trust me, you remember more than I do. So credit to you, props to you. Um, we can fast. So basically, the wacko girl goes. I forget your name. I'm sorry in advance. She goes home, and fast forward to this week. This week, I remember clearly because we had just watched it a couple hours ago. Um, they are sent on a mission to find these cases. Some of them are buried in sandcastles, and they're trying to find these huge amounts. And when they
And it
come back,
starts with them tied in two teams of six, and they have to
yes,
figure out who they have to agree as a group who is released first, so to speak.
yes. And when they do this, they go off and they find these cases. Some of them are large, some of them are very large, some of them are not so large. They're buried in sand castles. They're, trying to get them. That's the first part. So they all grab a case, right? They know what case they have. When they get back to the base, Joe Manganiello says, one at a time. So they all come in as they arrive
In order of arrival, yep.
and they take their case and they have to pick a stand. Now, here's the trick: that whoever stand they pick has a stand next to it. So they're going to be paired up according to their stand. And it's the sum total of both cases that tells whether or not they're in the bottom two. So they go through this process, a little jokey with Will and who's going to be with Will, and Australian Survivor goes with Will. And Parvati again and Philip end up together. And who pulls the banker's case? Again, our buddy Philip gets the banker's
And
case.
this time the power was pretty big.
Pretty big. It was to
It
split.
and it guaranteed their safety while doing it, so they could do it knowing it didn't matter, they were safe.
So he ends up splitting up Rock. And who's Rock's
And Letty.
partner? And Letty, right.
And Letty had 4 million,
Rock.
so she was safe.
I love Rock. Something about him is very likable. Like I could
Yeah.
see myself as Rock. Like if there was a casting for this season, I could see myself in that position, if that makes sense. So I was like, I was rooting for him. I was rooting for him. So Rock and well, I'm kind of spoiling it, aren't I? But Rock and
Well,
Letty,
yeah, before you get to there, two things before the competition that happened that were noteworthy.
yeah,
Dr. Will blows up Poverty's game.
that is you just that is I cannot believe I did. Please explain what
They're
happened. You
sitting
got to
around
explain.
talking, and he goes on this like monologue, if that's what you want to call it, for like
Doc,
15, 20 minutes. I'll call it a
historical
rant.
Dr. Will. It's
Yeah,
Dr. Will Rant. Yes.
I'll call it a rant. He just basically in the middle of it goes, "Oh, you know, Poverty as a Survivor player." And half the room doesn't know that, and half the room does. So you can kind of see everyone's reactions.
There's shock and awe.
And
There's
Poverty has to get up and walk away for a moment and basically says, "Yeah, I need to get Will out of here." So that'll be interesting.
oh,
And the other tidbit that I thought was very interesting was I can't remember which it was, Maria or maybe someone else, but one of them's having a conversation with David post finding out about Poverty, and then she sits there and starts explaining how Survivor works to
the
literally one of the
David.
greatest Survivor champions. And she's like, "Oh yeah, so like people who win Survivor are really." He's like, "Oh really? Oh wow, that's interesting."
Now, our audience might not be familiar with David, but David won Australian Survivor. And in Australia, he is basically the Boston Rob of Survivor in Australia. Like, he's pretty damn big over there. And he is in Survivor Australia versus the world with Poverty, which should be interesting because
Which one
my
was
under
filmed first?
Deal or No Deal Island was filmed first. So that is interesting
So
how
they'll
that
know
is
each
going to
other
run
going into
over.
that one. Yeah,
Yes.
interesting.
Interesting. Yes. And other interesting thing is the other cast members might not know that they know each other, which is another
Ooh,
wrench.
double interesting.
I'll have to figure out how we can watch that because I do want to see that season
When
of
does that
USA.
start?
I'm not sure. I have to look it up. But
That might
if
be
he's,
on that
I
might be on
love.
Paramount. Would that be on Paramount?
I'm not sure. I didn't know David from Adam before this season, but I can absolutely see why he's very charismatic. I can definitely see why he won his season.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh, so yeah, we shall see how that kind of goes. I'm a huge fan of Poverty. I've always been the Black Widow. I mean, I've watched her seasons of
That's
Survivor, so
that's one of the few reasons why we're still watching.
me too. Me too. Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And her and Philip, for me, I like the connection with Philip, even though, it's just, it's really cool to know somebody on
Yeah,
even,
and now
it's,
rooting against Dr. Will, so
yeah. I want
or
Dr. Will to
for him
go,
for
but
you.
no, I'm rooting against him. No, he's too smug for me, and I like to root against him, even though I'm a fan, but I like to be does that make sense? But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, speaking of rooting against Beast Games, we got some people that we've been rooting against get finally pay the price.
we sure did. Let me tell you, there was no two I was happier about than the brothers. Those
That's exactly where I was going with that.
nasty ass brothers. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm saying that straight.
yeah.
So to rewind, folks, a couple of episodes ago,
We're talking about Beast Games now.
yes, sorry, we transitioned. By the way, Rock was eliminated on Deal or No Deal Island. I don't know if we said that or
I
not. I was
wasn't sure
sad
if we
about
we
that.
didn't want to spoil it since it was this
Oh,
first night, so that's
spoiler.
why I skipped ahead. So,
It's okay. It's okay.
oh well.
Sorry. It's
Sorry if you
if
care.
you're one of the three
Probably
people
don't.
that are
I'm
listening,
guessing they don't care.
they don't care. If it's Mike, I'm sorry, buddy. Sorry. But so going back a couple episodes on Beast Games, there was a cube challenge where there are three players in a cube,
Yeah, we
and
talked about that on here.
right, and one of them had to handcuff themselves to basically sacrifice themselves before the time ran out. Well, the two brothers that were with this girl basically convinced this girl to do it. It was really, really mean. The way it played out was nasty, and they finally got their comeuppance this week
They did.
through trivia.
Through trivia.
By the way, that would have been absolutely my game. I would have kicked ass on that challenge. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, they both and nothing pleased me more than to see the one brother. Well, the first brother goes out and he's a real nasty one. That was the one that didn't want
And
to budge at
he's the
all.
one who had the advantage and picked the category. That's what an embarrassing way to go out after you play that terrible of a game.
Too bad, so sad.
Yeah.
I was not upset at all. I
No,
actually
no,
literally
none. It was great.
screamed.
Embarrassing for
"Allah."
him.
Yes.
Hopefully he will learn from that.
Do you think he would though?
No.
Mm-mm. I think
I
that's
think they
he's just
do
a
it
nasty
again. They'll
person.
get on another one as like a maybe House of Villains season four.
Villains.
Yeah,
I hope.
House of Villains season four. Package deal.
I actually hope not. Here's my thing with villains, though. I think most of the villains, there's something likable about them still. There's
Yeah,
zero
agreed.
likability with these two brothers at all. Like they're just plain assholes. I mean, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Um, um. So the first brother goes out. It's like horrendous. It's like hooray! I'm happy, etc. The way the second brother went out was like the best, and it was like the creme de la creme. He's like, Mr. Beast offers, he misses the question, and Mr. Beast says, which is interesting. He goes, I'm gonna give you an offer of, I think it was 20 grand. Was it 20
50.
grand? Oh, 50 grand. If you just go at it again and ask another question. And I wonder though, Charlie, if part of that was because they liked his villainous and they wanted to keep him around. I'm confused at why
Yeah.
specifically this time he offered.
My thought was that they had an idea of like it was going to be like the third or the fourth person. At some
Okay.
point, they were going to do it. And my guess is, I mean, it could be on purpose, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and think it was random, but it probably wasn't. It
It
probably
was
wasn't.
weird though.
Yeah.
So he's like, if you want, I'm gonna give you $50,000. Just do another question. And the brother's like, yeah, redo.
Yeah.
And the
Do
guy
another
was
one.
like,
Do another one.
do another one. And the guy was like, nope, I'm good.
No,
I
I came
said,
here to eliminate you. And the speech beforehand even said, if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose trying to take this guy out because I didn't like him. I,
and
I'm rooting for that guy to go far.
he went. They all dropped. Bloop. And that was for me the one of the most satisfying parts. That was the most satisfying part of the episode because the other guy that was eliminated was annoying too, but not to the extent of these dudes at
And
all.
and to set it up, they got to choose between a a brain game, a strength game, or random game of chance. How many? I couldn't believe how many people picked chance. Could
I would
you?
never do that. I would have absolutely picked the brain game. That would have been
Yeah,
my thing, 100%. I
I
certainly
think I
wasn't
could have
gonna do
lived.
strength.
I could have lived going out in trivia, and I knew most of those answers well
You
before
would have
going
done
in.
well too. You're a
It
trivia
just
guy
would have
too.
depended on who do you go against and did you pick. So.
I mean, the sports question, my God,
Oh, that was so. As soon as
so
the guy answered us in Lakers, I'm
easy.
like, haha, he's out.
I'm like, bye bye.
That's the best
um,
part too, though, and that is if you go second, although they did make him have to answer. So had he got it
mhm.
wrong, they would have just done a redo, or were they both out?
They probably would have went to another question.
Yeah, because we didn't see any of that happen once, right? Nobody got it.
No,
We're both wrong.
they might have had that, but we just didn't see it. The
Right. They didn't
question,
show. They didn't air a couple of them.
right, they kind of show just a fast forward. The question for folks is which NBA team won most championships?
And it was the Celtics. Easy.
Boston Celtics. Yeah, I mean, come on. For a sports fan, that's even if you're not a huge basketball fan, it's pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
Um, I think some of the dummy answers I was expecting was the Lakers was one, probably the Knicks and the Bulls maybe because of Jordan. People
Yeah,
don't
but the
know
Bulls
that.
only won
Besides
those six.
Jordan, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. People don't understand that. Like they think, oh, Jordan, six
Bulls are
is a
like,
lot.
it
Don't get me
is. It's
wrong.
like
In the
fourth
small
most,
time
maybe
frame,
third, fourth most.
it's a small time period, like 80s, late 80s, 90s. It's a small time frame that happened. So I mean, for the city of Chicago, it was huge. I mean, considering the Cubs weren't doing anything, and the Bears in the mid 80s were pretty good.
They had won
Um,
85, yeah.
yeah, the Bears won the Super Bowl in '85. So anyway, the questions were, what they were, and I agree with you. I can't believe how many people picked the game of chance, and the game of chance was basically Mr. Beast spun a wheel, and it basically landed on how many people would have to be eliminated, and it could have been nobody was eliminated or everybody was eliminated,
Yep.
and it
And there was
ended.
one square that had money where they all would get money and then they'd spin again.
Yeah, which would have been wonderful. I
That would
mean,
have
if
been the
you're going to
best
get
outcome.
eliminated,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Get the
I
money
think,
3 times in a row, will you?
yeah, exactly. I think there were like 16 of them, and he landed on 12 or something like that. I think there
Yeah,
were four
12.
spots.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So only four of the 16 would advance. So in the other two choices, you had a 50-50 chance to get through. And in this one, you had a 25% chance, all because they decided to pick chance.
exactly. And so this game was interesting because it had some of the storylines that we've been following. So two of the big ones, it had the guy who was ultra religious who had the people follow him and he had to pray for who.
The other satisfying elimination.
Yeah. I mean, here's my thing. I do not. I applaud people that have religion and believe in whatever they believe in. I'm good with that. That's not my issue with him at all. My issue with him is he lied. And when
Yeah.
you lie and you say you're going to do something and you literally don't, and you're using the Bible, that's weird for me. That's like odd. So that's kind of where I was with him, and I was done with him at that point. Like he was almost like a god complex, and we've talked about this last week. It was like a
Yeah.
god complex. So he was eliminated randomly. One person who wasn't eliminated, and I was very happy for this, our island queen who won the island.
Yes.
She's
Still
lucky,
going.
dude. I'm rooting for her. I don't know why. I'm kind of rooting for her. Like that's
Absolutely. And then the guy that eliminated the brother, rooting for him too.
yes,
There's at least a few
yes.
couple people now that you have an interest in.
Wow. I mean, she's already a winner. I mean, she's gonna make bank with this island in Panama that she's gonna sell, and that's where they are, by the way. If you don't know, folks are in Panama. They've taped this in, as I know, three cities. They started in Vegas, then they went to Toronto, and now they're in Panama. The base games
A lot
island.
of
Anyway,
flying. Get some good miles out of it if they
yeah, I'm
lasted this
telling
long.
you. And I know our friend Erica went to at least to Toronto, so that's it.
Oh,
I
I
don't know
thought she
how.
was in. I thought she was in Vegas.
No, she went to Vegas and Toronto. So she survived whatever they did in Vegas, and then she went to Toronto, and I think that's where she was eliminated. The
Got it.
problem is so many people that it's hard unless I actually talk to the people. I don't know where they were eliminated. So
Hmm.
I think she was eliminated, if I'm gonna guess from kind of trying to watch that challenge where they're throwing the ball into the bucket. I think that's where she
She was
was
on the
taken
team
out of.
that the guy dropped it.
I think so. I think so, or
Yeah.
something like that. But
Oh, you're saying the one where they threw it. Okay, yeah. Because
I'm
they
gonna
didn't show
text
everybody
her.
throw.
I'm gonna text Erica and ask her because I'm curious, kind of where how that played out. So we'll see how this plays out. Got another entry thanks to you. So every night, yes. Ooh, we're gonna win
And
a lot of money.
we're down to like what 20 something people, right?
20
It,
something people.
yeah, it was at 51, and then the one person got eliminated because they had an odd number in one of them, so that took it to 50. And then you had the half, and then the four. So yeah, it was like
Y-
16 and 18, so 9 and 8, 17 and four. Yeah, probably about 21, something like that. So
Dude,
it should get pretty intense the last couple of weeks.
I'm shocked. I'm gonna tell you why I'm shocked, and I don't know if you feel the same way. I did not. I had very low expectations of the show. Like I went into it like, okay, Beast Games, all right, whatever. It's gonna be corny and stupid and like Squid Games, which it is similar
It
in many
is,
ways.
but it's entertaining.
I love it.
Yeah,
It's a fun show, and Mr. Beast is a pretty damn good host, I will say. I mean, he has that kind of witty kind of side where it's like, oh well. It's like, and I don't know.
okay.
It's just bye bye.
Yeah,
And I don't know. He's actually a good dude. He just did some really cool stuff for people that didn't have limbs. I saw that he ended up like doing this thing where people got limbs, and that's cool stuff. I love when people who have money actually do something with it. Just saying.
yeah, definitely.
um, but that's besides the point. Anyway, so that takes us to our sports segment. Sports. Um, so you and we have these interesting text exchanges throughout the week, sports related, mostly sports related, sometimes other stuff, but and you know me, I'm baby diapers. I am
That's quite the nickname you just gave yourself.
someone else gave it to me a long time ago,
Tim
so it kind of
Baby
stuck with
Diapers Sternberg.
kind of stuck with me. Now you're gonna say it. Great. Okay.
Pretty good. Pretty
So
good.
pretty good. All right. So here's the deal. Um, there was an article that came out and Charlie forwarded it to me. You, Charlie. And Martino, I think, wrote it. I'm not positive, but basically said that the chances of Pete Alonso re-signing with the Mets are basically nil. Um, so I had quite a reaction. I was in Orlando with
Would
our
you
buddy.
would you qualify it as maybe baby diapers reaction?
It was a baby diapers reaction. I think I said something along the lines of F them, meaning the Mets. I was very upset
And he's dead
because
to me. I'm selling everything. Full scorched earth.
yeah, exactly. Um, and so yeah, I
All while
don't
you were at the happiest place on earth.
it's not true. I'm literally so while I'm
Baby
gonna give you
diapers at the happiest place on earth.
I'm gonna set this up for you because you don't know the background. So we're waiting for I'm waiting for Erica and I are waiting for Andy. We're at Epcot. And I'm sitting there. Our Uber gets there before Andy, so I'm sitting there chatting with you on a text, and you send me this, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm showing on my card, and you're like having a time with this. You're like having a time with this, and I go, I finally go, I'm like, oh, I see Andrew. So literally, I immediately like have to change my tone. I'm like, Andy, what's up, buddy? And
You had to dispose of the messy baby diapers and put on fresh clean ones.
I can't with you, man. I should not have told you that because you're gonna use that. Oh my God. But yes, yes, I had to eliminate the baby diapers. Oh, I had to pick my big boy pants on and move on with the day. Folks, just for clarification, I do not wear diapers. Thank you very much.
Unless you're seeing a really, really long movie.
Yeah, yeah, it depends. I'm just saying, I'm old. So I have since we've had that conversation, gone through the stages of grief. I
All
think
of them.
what did I skip? I skipped something you
You
told me.
skip bargaining, I think it was.
I skipped
I
marketing.
think you skip bargaining, but you hit the rest of
Uh,
them.
yeah, what's there to bargain? It's out of my control, right? I can't do anything about it. So I'm at acceptance. Listen, whatever happens at this point, I'm over it. Honestly,
And
I
then
don't.
and then let's also clarify that after this article was written, since it's been about 9 or 10 days since we've recorded, a whole week passed, he still went unsigned. And now they're saying, well, maybe it's not completely dead. So let's wait until the ink is dry on a contract somewhere.
He's gonna sign somewhere. There's no way he's not gonna sign. It's not going to be what he wants to sign, but he's going to sign somewhere. They're saying now that Santander was signed by the Blue Jays. Now that he's off the table, that it's
Yeah,
possible.
because Toronto was one of his fits, and now another team is gone because Santander. I mean, they could theoretically play Vladdy at third, but they're not going to do that.
Now, technically, the Mets have not made a move to fill that position.
Correct.
Technically,
They've spent some money, so they maybe would have to figure out how to get interesting to not go over one of the third line. Maybe, give them a big signing bonus and then backload it into year two. So
so
we'll
let
see.
I do want to give you a couple of
They could move Marte as well.
and Marte, he's on the down too, in my opinion. I mean, always been a great player, but he's kind of
But well, for I know he'd be expensive, but for what they could do is Winker and Marte could be a perfect platoon. Winker starts against righties, Marte against lefties, and then you have combined in their stats, and that's probably an excellent season.
so that's where I
Let's
wanted to
see.
go with this. I wanted to kind of what if they don't sign Alonso? What are the situation? So my first thought is they move Vientos to first and they put Beatty on third base. And Beatty is not a great option in my
Or
opinion because
Mauricio or Acuna.
right, Mauricio or Acuna. My thing with Beatty is the fact that they have given him multiple chances to perform at the major league level, and
Yeah,
for whatever reason, he does great in AAA against AAA pitching and AAA fielding, but once he gets up to the major league level, he
yeah.
cannot sustain
It's
himself.
possible he's a 4A guy, but sometimes, guys are late bloomers. You never know.
That's what someone said to me. I got into a little discussion with them, and they wanted to, how Twitter discussions are. He's like, "Well, Vientos was a late bloomer," and I'm like, "Yeah, comparing Vientos to Beatty, I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't gonna go there. I don't think that they're comparable.
Vientos is younger than Beatty, I believe.
He is, and he's quite frankly, he's always been better than Beatty. I mean, I don't ever see that he wasn't. I mean, he struggled, sure, but." So I think, the one possible, and which I don't think is a good solution, is Vientos at first and Beatty at third. I think too, Mauricio, Acuna. Acuna is mostly a second baseman, but infield is infield.
Could McNeil play third, and then you put Mauricio at second?
I think McNeil probably would be second, and you would put, but that's an interesting thing too because McNeil and Alonso have a very strong relationship, and I wonder what kind because McNeil's been known to have chips, and I wonder what kind of chip that would bring. Um, I don't know. I'm hoping honestly the best solution, which I don't think is going to happen either, would be for them to move Vientos to first and to sign Bregman. But again, Bregman is overpriced. So Bregman, we're back at the same situation with Alonso, and you're giving up a draft pick
Yeah,
to
that's where
Houston.
I think Stearns is too smart. He wants to get the overall health of the organization back in shape,
Yeah.
and they have to stay under that third line to stop dropping in the draft automatically and losing international spending money. So theoretically, if the original report of them moving on with Pete was true, they've already since then spent 8 million about on Winker. And then they signed AJ Minter, a reliever who I really wanted for the Cubs. I thought that was a very great signing for the Mets. He's at 11. That's 19. That's not, that's all. Alonso was looking in the 25-30 range. So theoretically, they might only have about another 10 or so to go unless they make some other move, which is why I mentioned Marte as a possibility to be flipped with his salary. But you don't also want to move someone just to move them to save a few bucks if they have to eat it. So we'll see what happens. But I think Stern's going to keep him under that number. I think it was they're nearing 290, and I think they only have like another 10, somewhere in that range to go.
That's why I think it's quite possible they may still sign Alonso, but maybe to a 1 year deal for a decent amount of money. And this way, all parties can kind of.
And then
I mean,
maybe they can defer half of it.
and I'm one of the biggest Pete Alonso fans on the planet, but I will say this. He didn't do himself any favors this last season. I mean, as far as he did great. He if it wasn't for Pete Alonso, the Mets aren't in the NLCS. But I will say this, through the regular season, he was kind of on the decline for Pete
Yeah,
Alonso anyway.
for
And I
Pete's
think
standards, yes, he's had a little bit of a downturn the last few seasons. But also from a standpoint of the league, he was still fourth overall first
mhm,
base. So like he
100%.
still got it, but yes, he wasn't the same Pete he had been in 21 and 22.
And I think that's why teams haven't signed him. I mean, and I
Yeah.
think Boris has
I mean, but hey,
overpriced
if your
him
floor is 30 homers, I mean, some teams want that. So
100%. I want that for the Mets. I
yeah,
still want
I
us to
mean, and
sign
they
him.
still have the fit for it. So maybe,
Yeah.
maybe they get creative. You give them like 5 million up front in the signing bonus. You defer another 10, and maybe they can get creative and make it work.
And make Pete work for a decent contract in 20 in 2026. I mean he's still young. I mean he's relatively young enough for that.
Yeah, I mean, he wanted a 7 year, now 6 year deal. So yeah, he's young enough.
I mean and to the Mets credit, and I wasn't here and now I am thanks to your acknowledge and discussion. You know, to the Mets credit, they did offer him a decent contract and he turned it down.
Above market value both times. They had the
Yeah,
best
so
offer long term. They have the best offer short term. He just is listening to Boris too much, unfortunately.
you know, he should have learned from Michael Conforto. Michael Conforto,
Or
similar issue.
Montgomery, Bellinger, Snell the first time. He's had a couple others. I mean, I'm gonna say
I mean,
this.
yes, he
I don't
signed
think
Juan
you can.
Soto,
I
but
don't. That's what I was gonna say. I don't think you could have messed up the Juan Soto contract. So
no.
I don't really think that's a feather in his cap.
He made a lot of money from that Juan Soto contract,
He
and so
did.
much so that he probably doesn't give two iotas if Pete signs, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I
Let's
mean,
be
he still
real.
cares about getting his extra couple million, but still, he's he held out too long, and now unfortunately it hurt Pete.
Yeah, I think Pete was not a priority to him, and all of a sudden, when Soto was done, teams were kind of like over it. And I think if Pete had any other manager, he probably would have signed a decent deal at or around the time of Soto. I don't
Yeah.
know. So yeah, we'll see what happens. So you know, I did say this is sports, so that's anything you want to talk about with the
Yeah,
Cubs.
we
Any
also have to
updates?
mention how the Dodgers got like another 50 people, or we can just gloss over it.
All
But
right, the
if there's someone out
Dodgers.
there that your team is interested in, hope that the Dodgers aren't also interested because they'll just go there.
Dodgers, like I predicted, signed Saki. What is that his name? Saki?
Yeah, Roki Sasaki.
Roki Sasaki. They signed him. Surprise, shocker. Why wouldn't Sasaki want to go on the team with Otani? I mean, come on. I mean, I'm not shocked at all. And honestly, LA is a quicker flight to Tokyo, and they're having an opening series against the Cubs in Tokyo. What a great way to debut with a team then
Well,
in
I don't think he'll be
Tokyo.
ready to pitch
Oh,
yet by
right.
then.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Yamamoto and Snell, is what I've heard, but
That's
we'll
okay.
see.
We have Ghost Fork. It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's
And we'll
fine.
have Shota pitch. Shota will pitch one of the games for the Cubs. Probably Shota and
Right.
Steele, I would guess.
Shota is an amazing pitcher, and the Cubs
Yeah.
and the Mets both have great Japanese pitchers. So whatever.
Yeah.
um, So how, let me ask you real quick, how overall are you feeling about the offseason for the Cubs? I think it's been really successful.
It's been pretty successful so far. They still got some moves to make, and I still know that there's still, as we sit here today, we're still another 3 weeks from just pitchers and catchers reporting, and many guys have signed even into spring last year. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge the offseason, at, we'll say 65, 70% done. There's still a few weeks to go. If this is the roster at the end, I think it was a good, not great offseason, but I do truly believe they will still spend the rest of the money that they've said they would. They wanted Tanner Scott, they were runners up. Then they were going to pivot to Kirby Yates. Well, guess what?
Wait,
He also went to the Dodgers
where did
reporting.
Tanner Scott sign?
Dodgers, Dodgers, Dodgers.
Oh man,
But there's
dude.
still a few guys
How many
out there.
pitchers do they
There's still
need?
plenty of guys out there. You still got Carlos Estevez, you've got Kenley Jansen, David Robertson, Kyle Finnegan, Andrew Chafin. There's still a bunch of relievers out there.
Let
So
me ask you a question. If you're one of the many pitchers that have signed by the Dodgers, aren't you asking yourself where you fit in the organization at some point? How is this going to
except
work?
all of these guys that have signed recently are just going to displace other guys, which I think eventually will have some sort of, hopefully, long-term implications, ramifications on the rest of the league.
So
Imagine
does
some of
Kurt?
these guys are just going to get dumped.
So does Kershaw get re-signed? What's
That's
happening
I
with
was
Kershaw?
talking about this with some people the other day. Do they just say no, sorry, we have too many pitchers now? I mean, what?
Like Kershaw
Who's
is
going to be going to
aging.
start over?
I
Start
mean,
naming their starting pitching,
I would take Clayton Kershaw in a second at the Mets. I mean, my
right?
God. Are you
Yes. Well,
kidding?
why not? 1 year little
The
pillow deal.
Cubs? Yeah,
Sure.
100%. Yeah.
We Cubs have a
Um,
lot of lefties, so I think that if they add another starter, it's going to be a righty. Maybe his old teammate Jack Flaherty, but we'll see.
Flaherty
He's
is
still
a
out there.
really good pitcher.
He's
Yeah,
still out there.
underrated.
You know who else is still
Yeah.
out there? The other guy that I predicted would take the qualifying offer, and shockingly, guess he should have taken it because he's no one wants him right now.
Who?
Nick Pivetta.
Oh, Pavetta,
He
yeah.
would have got 21.5 million for 1 year, and then he would have gone right back to the market with no qualifying offer attached.
The
He
head.
might not
What
even get
is
21 million for 2 years at this point.
he might get 5 million
He
or
will.
10
Someone
million.
eventually will pay him. I'm being
But
dramatic, but
that's
still.
crazy. Like yeah,
Yeah, he should have taken that.
is he a Boris person too?
Oh yeah.
Oh God. Oh God. You know, eventually players are going to have to look at this and say, no. I mean, like you said, Juan Soto sold Juan Soto. There was no, Juan Soto was always going to get a huge contract. It was just a
We
matter
could
of
have been
which
his
team.
agents and he would have gotten
Yes.
that much money.
Yes. The Mets were already like, oh, that's our guy. And, and I'm with you though. I'm like, I think the Mets have to sign some more guys for me to say it was a great offseason. I'm with you with good for the
I
Mets.
definitely think the Mets offseason trumps the Cubs, if we're being honest.
I do agree with that, but I'm saying it's a different. I mean, it's different
Yeah.
markets, different level. I will just
I
say
put the
that
Mets in the A tier. They definitely can still add some moves. I'd probably put the Cubs in the B tier right now,
I agree with you, but also the Chicago's a smaller market. I mean, there's
which is
parts to
wild to say
that.
out loud,
Isn't that crazy? I
but
know
it is.
one of the greatest cities in the country, but that's besides the point.
And Steve Cohen has more money than everybody but the Dodgers.
But we like Steve at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Steve's actually a decent guy. I mean, unlike the Dodgers. Anyway, so here's where I'm coming from with the Mets. I think Soto was huge. Don't get me wrong. And we've had this kind of argument a little bit, but I think we have Soto, we have Nimmo, we have Lindor, we have Vientos. We have pieces beyond that, but they don't assure me, if that makes sense. They don't fill me with, and I don't know
You want one
necessarily.
more bat in that lineup.
I do one more.
Yeah. Pete,
I just exactly. If they sign Pete, I'm good. Like I'm good where we are. I think Winker was a great signing, and like I told you, a great clubhouse signing, and he can hit a ball. He's good.
I think
It's
if
just
they keep Marte, him and Marte make a great platoon. Marte hits
he's.
lefties really well, and Winker crushes righties.
I actually think Winker at this point is better than Marte, and I wouldn't have said that a year or two
Oh,
ago.
definitely.
Yeah,
This
but I
fully healthy
agree.
Winker.
Yes. And plus
Marte's
his
also getting up there in age a little bit.
yeah, and he kind of reminds me in his own way of Soto with his attitude in the box and the way he kind of presents himself. He's really entertaining to watch. Winker is definitely he was a couple of years ago the Mets fans hated him. Now we love him. So that tells you kind of where.
Yeah,
But yeah, so that's kind of where I am, and I'm sorry to go back to the Mets, but that's kind of my feeling with the whole situation is I think Soto is great. I think people like you who are factual and don't get emotional because it's not your team will say that was a great offseason for the Mets. People like me that are emotionally tied, almost like we're spoiled. Don't say baby diapers, but we're spoiled children where we want more and more and more, and
yeah.
it just
It's
feels
it's hard for
incomplete.
people. It's hard for people to remember that the last few baseball off seasons, a lot more has been done in January and February than in the traditional sense.
And we actually talked about it on this podcast last year. I remember this discussion. You said, "Don't worry, and you were right. There were signings that happened,
The Cubs ended up with re-signing Bellinger again after
which
that
was
conversation.
amazing." Yes, yes. So I do think no one's going to outspend the Dodgers right now because I think the Dodgers are stupid spending at this point. If that makes sense, I
Their
don't
TV
know
money
it,
is insane. Their
but
Japan money, yeah, they have more money than anybody, and
but
Cohen has more money than anybody.
But there's a point of saturation to that. Look, I mean, take the Mets for example. A couple of years ago, the Mets spent like crazy. Got Scherzer, got Verlander, and did nothing with them. So I mean,
I also think the key here is for the Dodgers ownership group with all the deferrals. I think they're going to end up selling down the road, and whoever buys them are going to be stuck with all that.
you're buying a lopsided deal.
Win a few more times, cash in, and then they're gonna sell.
But how attract? I mean, it's like selling. It's like selling a condo with a special assessment. How do you do that? Like,
I also heard another take that is a little scary to talk about, and we won't get into this too deeply, but quickly, a lot of people seem to think that there could be no 2027 MLB season because of the
why?
CBA. When the CBA expires, they think that this is a
Oh,
big thing. So a lot of these teams are sitting out on these long deals so they don't have to pay the people for that season. Just
oh,
just
wow.
a thing I heard. So
That wouldn't be
we
good.
won't have to get into that doom just yet, but
Yeah, I know where you heard that from, so I think
we'll
it's.
earmark that for later.
I know where you heard that from. Enough said. I
I
kind
heard
of
it
put
on
two and two
Chicago
together.
Sports Talk
Oh,
Radio
okay.
is where
All
I
right.
heard
All
that.
right. I got you. Got you. So anyway, speaking of sports, let's talk. We have to talk about Josh Allen. We have to talk about the Braves, the Ravens, and the Bills. Um, what
What
are
a game!
your thoughts? Like,
It was a
because
great
you are
game.
Charlie, I will say this: Charlie is a Josh Allen fan and a Lamar Jackson fan. So
Yep. I've
Charlie
been
was.
saying I remember when I said probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, like it was probably week 17 or 16. Regular season still had a couple weeks to go, and I said, well, it's looking like Baltimore and Buffalo are gonna end up meeting up in the second round, barring disaster, and that's exactly what happened. So I knew that whoever was victorious from this game was going to be who I rooted for the rest of the way. So here I am sitting
And
here
I promised you I would too.
wearing my Josh Allen shirt
I love it. I love it. I
because it's
promised you I
essentially
would
Buffalo
too.
all the way.
The- I I will say this, and I'm a little biased, as you know, but there's no quarterback who wants it more right now than Josh Allen. I mean, he is like full steam ahead. He is freaking playing like one of the greats that
It
he
was
is.
a little nerve wracking that they had an 11-point lead with the ball at home, and I'm gonna kind of say
But
Buffalo.
you, but you
Buffalo
know,
didn't win that as much as I think Baltimore lost it. If
I agree with
pretty
you.
key mistakes from some guys that don't do that.
But you
Poor
know
Mark
what?
Andrews.
Oh, let's talk. We'll talk about Mark Andrews in a minute. You know what? The last couple of games, though, the Bills have done exactly that. They have been behind right at the beginning of the game, and they come back. Mark Andrews. So, what happened with Mark Andrews? Was he trying to make a conversion? Is that what happened?
Which one? What? Because there were two brutal
I
ones.
know, but the last one where he literally drops the ball.
for
from
wide open 2 point conversion
oh
that
my
they had just
God.
completed the comeback.
Literally, his body is falling into the end zone. Like
Yeah.
the ball, his hands are literally out close to the ball, and the ball just
He also had a first half drop and
brutal.
then the key fumble in the fourth quarter before that drive. Baltimore looked like they were about to take the lead. And instead, Buffalo retained the ball up five, kicked the field goal to go up eight, and then got the drop after that, too. So,
You know, that was not a fun ride home for
no,
him.
that was, but it's good to see Bills Mafia is always doing the right thing. And they've donated a ton of money to his charity. So,
Yeah. Yeah. There, I will say this, and again, I'm not from Buffalo, never lived in Buffalo. I have been to Buffalo. They're the nicest people that I have wanted to. Chicago and Buffalo are similar vibey cities for me with the people. Like they're just nice people like that. And not like the rest of New York. It's a different New York up in upstate where Buffalo is. And I will say that I am not surprised that the Bills Mafia came through like that. I will say that there was a DJ, I believe, in Baltimore that's called Bills fans losers, and the Bills fans basically started donating to his charity. And he's like, "Oh, that's Bills Mafia. That's what they do. Yeah,
yeah,
we throw ourselves on tables. We jump from a high level and crash
they know how
crazily
to have a
into
good
tables.
time, but they're also
We
nice.
we do, and I have been to Bills Mafia tailgates down here in Miami, and they basically travel to wherever the Bills are, and they have these huge tailgates. And yeah, I mean, shout out Bills Mafia, all the way. Um, and
Yeah, so we
one day
got Bills, Kansas City, and we've got Philly and Washington. So it should be so conference championship games should be solid.
predictions.
I'm taking Buffalo over Philly in the Super Bowl.
That's kind of where I'm at. I think it's going to be Bills and Eagles. That's interesting that you said that. I'm there too. I think the Bills over the Eagles. I think this is Josh. I think this is Buffalo's year. I really do. Um, I don't
It
think
is
the
the game is in Kansas City, and the refs have very typically favored Kansas City, which is always a little nerve wracking to have to go
it
up against
is,
those zebras. But I think
but
Buffalo's going to do it.
I mean, if you look at the previous games this season, the Bills have had a pretty good job, done a pretty good job this year against the Chiefs. I think. Yeah, Mahomes will have to literally throw the most perfect game on the planet, and not that he can't, mind you,
He's
but
done it many times.
yeah, I think it's the Bills
It'll be
season. I
it'll be
really
fun.
do. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with Bills and Chiefs this week. We'll see what happens with the Commanders and the Eagles. I'm rooting for the Eagles.
Yep.
Fly Eagles
Good
fly.
old friend of the pod, Nick Testa. Go Nick
Yes.
Testa. Go the Eagles.
Go Franklin, go Nick Testa,
Go
go all our
Franklin.
Philadelphia connection people. Go AJ. My buddy AJ is a big Eagles fan. So until the Super Bowl, fly Eagles fly. But yeah, so it'll be
Unless they end up
interesting.
having to play Kansas City, then fly Eagles fly again.
I'll 100% root for
Buffalo,
Philadelphia.
Philly, Washington, nobody.
Correct. Like if it's the
And
Commanders
nobody.
versus the Chiefs, I don't care who it is against the Chiefs. It's whoever they are. It's- yeah,
Speaking of the Bears,
100%.
they hired Ben Johnson as their coach. Could not be more happy about that. So
Good move. Where's Ben Johnson
finally,
from?
he's the offensive coordinator of the Lions,
Amazing.
who, even in a loss, scored 31 points, put up 520 yards of offense, and still were in the game in the fourth quarter despite five turnovers. So
To be
I'm real excited.
fair, anybody's an improvement over that
Yeah, it's
that
true,
coach you
but
had.
they could have done stuff they've done in the past and been very Bears, but they finally hired the guy that everybody wanted for once. So can't be more
Smart.
excited right now. So
So now have a good off season, get some
yep,
good selections, and hopefully the Bears come roaring back. We are the Bears. I'll root for the Bears. I don't have a problem.
absolutely.
You guys are NFC, so it's all right. It's all good. We're for the Bears in the
That's
NFC.
why I have no problem rooting for Lamar and Josh Allen.
100% because they're AFC. Absolutely. It's like, it's like in baseball, I root for the Orioles because they're American League. So whatever. But yeah. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we covered it.
I think we did a good job covering it. We'll be back next week, folks, with some updates on the Traitors, on Deal or No Deal Island, Beast Games, and if any other sports related. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about the Chiefs and the
Chiefs,
Bills.
Bills, and maybe we'll have a couple other signings MLB wise.
Fingers crossed. All right, have a great week, buddy.
You too. For Around the Bases, I'm Charlie Seymour, along with my host, Baby Diapers, Tim Sternberg.
See you next week.
Make
Bye,
sure to make
everybody.
sure to change them this time.
All right, you took control of that. I like it. All right,
I
bye,
had to.
everybody.
I had to.